Good morning, Thailand, and thank you for joining us for our midweek program, Wednesday, and that's the day we get to say hello to Abel from Find Your Voice Asia. Morning, Abel.
Good morning, Tim. Good morning, Thailand.
So today we're going to be talking a bit about the sandboxes and the various numbers, some COVID numbers, the situation with Food Panda and if the boycott is real, and how much would you pay to go into space? That's sort of some of our talking points this morning. And of course, we want to get your opinions and your thoughts. But we've already got quite a few people chiming in. Who we got?
Well, we have Steve Wilson, Paul R., Tim Gill, Brad Rothberg, Steve Mao, and Dirty Old Man.
Dirty Old Man's always
Hello.
there. And we've got a few questions. I think we had something to start with.
Yeah, we actually have a few good questions. Thank you very much also for bringing them in. And don't forget to put question before your question. We do not have any special places for the questions at the moment. So Tim Gill asked, well, there's no question mark, but I do believe it's a question. Bangkok needs help. More and more people on the streets and Thais can't get the vaccine. Why are they not using the empty hotels?
Well, I think they were talking about using unused schools for possible field hospitals because it seems that the current field hospitals and the other hospitals and all the ICUs are currently pretty much full. So there is a bit of an emergency on in Bangkok, and it would be silly of us to say otherwise. And I think yesterday there was some 3,000 people in some sort of ICU.
Yeah,
I'll double check on those
that's
numbers.
really high.
And there were I think it was like 200 or 300 people on respirators. So the situation at the moment is not good. And sad to report, Abel, that we have got the COVID numbers for today. 13,002 cases have been identified in the past 24 hours. Another 108 sad COVID-related deaths, and 1,049 cases from Thai prisons. Yesterday, Jay pointed out the fact that we'd had about a 400% increase in the number of cases reported in the Thai prisons from one day to the next. Well, today we've got another about 300%. So those cases are coming again in Thai prisons.
Well, only if they're checked, then the numbers spike up, of course. But
Yes.
I did wanted to answer the question from my opinion. Governments want to stick with government properties. They don't want to go and approach private hotel owners and ask for these. And I would assume that private hotel owners would probably not want to open their hotels to host COVID patients. But that would be just my opinion. So.
Well, yeah, but it's sort of not really what you would call a good optic for the hotel. Hi, come to our fabulous hotel and you can see COVID patients. It's not going to work.
So it's just easier for them to stick with like their own private, their own properties, government related, so public schools and things like that are owned by the government.
James asked the question, 14-day quarantine for vaccinated tourists? Well, not in Phuket or Samui, but if you go to Bangkok, even if you're vaccinated, currently you'll have to do 14 days of ASQ if you arrive in Bangkok.
Yeah.
That is why people are arriving through places like Phuket at the moment, and so much Samui, we'll get to that in a sec. But yeah, the idea is that you can float around the island. The whole island is your quarantine.
Right.
Today, the PM is meeting with a chunk of CEOs in Bangkok, people who run some big companies. And he's basically having a talk fest to discuss the current COVID situation and the economic impact on Thai people. He is going to be questioning, is this having a big economic impact on the country? I could save you the entire meeting, Mr. Prime Minister, and say, yes, it is going to be having a profound effect and is having a profound effect on a lot of people. So I think the tone of the meeting perhaps should be about what they can do to help people whilst they've currently got all these restrictions happening.
Well, it's really important to try to put yourself into the shoes of the people who are suffering. I mean, if you are the government officials, you are already still getting salary. Everything is still quite normal for you. But there are lots of people, local people suffering, especially trying to feed their family and their children. That is like the basic needs, right? That needs to be taken care of.
Also, we can announce today that after 3 months of dilly-dallying and some false starts, the government have actually signed a supply agreement with Pfizer for some 20 million doses of the Pfizer COVID vaccine. But, I mean, the truth is they're not going to arrive until probably the last quarter of this year.
So it's not the AstraZeneca anymore. Are they not sending in? Are they not creating any more AstraZenecas in Thailand?
They're making it here in Thailand, but every time they announce the number of doses that are being produced, the number seems to keep dropping. But I mean, the more vaccines we get into the country of any type, the better.
Right.
All the vaccines work, and they work in slightly different ways, but they all have an efficacy to save you critical time in hospital.
Right.
Also, just on the sandboxes, we can say that Samui had 70 people arrive, but they were from Phuket.
Really?
So people who had done the Phuket sandbox and have now gone to Samui. As far as people who arrived in Samui yesterday for the Samui Plus, one person.
But that was expected, though. I mean, Phuket is the only open place where people can roam around.
Same with Samui.
But they have to stay in Phuket for 3 days or something, right?
No. They can.
No? No, I forgot.
They can go to Samui, they can fly in, but they have to go via Bangkok, of course, and then catch a Bangkok Airways flight. And then they stay in the hotel, I think, for 3 days. Then they can roam around the island, and then after 7 days, they can travel.
3 days in Samui, yes, correct.
They can travel to the other islands after 7 days, and then after 14 days, they can travel to other parts of the country.
Right.
And yesterday, the Tourism Authority of Thailand, our dear friends at the Tourism Authority of Thailand, have announced the next sandbox. And they're saying that Phang Nga and Krabi, which of course are adjacent to Phuket, places like Phi Phi Island are in the province of Krabi.
Right.
And Phang Nga Bay, where you can go to James Bond Island, that's in Phang Nga. So those are going to be the next on the list of opening up as a sandbox, probably starting on August the 1st. So there you go. Well, if you were to measure the success of the sandbox, what would you put as the way that you'd measure that success?
If I actually listen to the word success, I don't think that's actually like a correct word to use, because it's hard to define, because success means different things to different people. But I believe that anything that is initiating of welcoming tourists back is a stage of success, not particularly any specific numbers, because of course Thailand has a huge increase compared to ever before of COVID cases, and people here locally are still quite worried about all these new people coming in and spreading. I mean, even though you have the test and it's tested negative, some people still tested positive after, a few days that they arrive here. So there is still that kind of fear of, okay, Phuket is the only province that's open to everybody here. Are all the germs and all the viruses going to come to Phuket now? So there is that, the locals welcome tourists. I also welcome tourists. I'm very happy to see the few tourists that I see trickling in different areas.
But what's the measure of success?
I do not have an answer to that.
I have.
Okay, tell me, what is that?
Places like the TAT, the Tourism Authority, they're saying, well, we're going to measure. Why am I playing with this paperclip? Put that down.
Because you need to release your nervousness, right?
Yeah. They're saying it's just the numbers. How many people are coming to the island? I'm saying the only measure of success of the Phuket Sandbox and any of these other reopenings around Thailand is how many shops are reopening, how many workers are coming back to those zones to get gainful employment again. So the measure of success of the Sandbox to me is shops reopening, and I'm not seeing that at the moment. Here we are nearly 4 weeks into the Sandbox, and we've still got shops largely closed in places like Patong, Kata, Koron, and we've got some tourists walking around, but they're walking around asking themselves the question, what am I doing here?
Yeah.
So that's my measure of success. Anyway, we're going to have a quick break.
I would agree to that.
And we're going to come back and we're going to head up into space and ask whether you'd be spending $250,000 on jumping in a steel box and being boosted into space. Right after this on Good Morning Thailand. Back on Good Morning Thailand. It's Wednesday and it's July the 21st. It was July the 1st, just like yesterday. Well, obviously it wasn't.
Yeah, time goes fast.
It has really flown by. Let's go to some more questions, Abel.
Yes, there's a lot of questions coming in, so thank you very much to all the viewers. I do have a question, and I have lost the question now, but I just have memorized it. How many percentage of people are vaccinated in Phuket? Do you have any idea, Tim?
I missed the question. I'm sorry. I was reading
Yes. We get distracted. See, we have to multitask. How many people do you believe are vaccinated so far, percentage-wise, in Phuket?
My understanding is that around about 75% of people in Phuket have had at least one vaccine, and that it's around about 50 to 60% who have had the two vaccines.
Is this from the Ministry of Health or?
Ministry of Public Health,
Yeah.
and that's about a week ago. I don't believe there's been any big vaccine drives since. But I can say that if you are going to be running into people in hotels, people in the hospitality industry, people in the tourism industry, they will be mostly like almost 100% vaccinated.
Because most of the places that I have visited, they actually have a sign in front of the restaurant or the hotel saying that our staff are vaccinated, you know, so they put a sign up.
Yeah, the SHA plus sign.
Right.
Grammar Officer Krupke asked the question, why are you pushing for the vaccines? Why not discuss the alternatives? Well, as it happens, we're going to have an epidemiologist on the program tomorrow and Friday to discuss those issues, because there is a lot of misinformation out there. It's not as if we're pushing for vaccines here at the Tiger. The fact is we're just quoting the science. And the science really says that the only way out of this is to be vaccinated. It's as simple as that. And it's not as if we've got an opinion about it. That's just the scientific facts, looking at 150 years of vaccine, the use of vaccines, the science of vaccines, and their success. In the 20th century, vaccines were probably the most profound change to the whole public health environment around the world, saving millions, countless millions of people of undue sickness and pain. So it's not as if we're pushing vaccines, we're just saying that this is the only way out of the situation, like it or not. And if we want to move on from COVID, and let's remind people that in the US at the moment, their numbers are spiking up very quickly. And there's a lot of pain ahead for the people in the US, especially the states that have got low levels of vaccination. So don't think that we're out of this mess yet. And the only way out to save lives and stop people being hospitalised is to get a large quantity of the community vaccinated. Another question?
Yeah, there was some comments about what you're saying, is that they are quite angry with the fact that the vaccine rollout is so slow in Thailand.
Yeah. It must be so frustrating to be a foreigner where the Ministry of Foreign Affairs has said, we will vaccinate all foreigners, but so many people are finding it very difficult to get a vaccine at the moment. We understand and feel your pain and your frustration, and we will continue to try and update you with the latest news about vaccinations. We just don't have any solid information at the moment. Thai people are finding it hard enough to get vaccinated.
Yes, exactly, because of the protests you see, and also what I learned just yesterday from a source is that Thailand is actually one of the latest, or like the country that was in like the latest queue to order the millions of vaccine from AstraZeneca, right? The factory.
But we did so well last year. I think the government were lulled into a false sense of security. Let's go into space.
Yes.
We've got this vision to show you while we have a bit of a talk about this. This is the Blue Origins, the company by Jeff Bezos, who's from Amazon. And yesterday they took off with 4 just average human beings. Well, when I say that,
except for one.
The
Wally
4 very
Funk.
interesting people. There was Jeff and his brother Mark, and there was an 82-year-old lady, Wally Funk. You're going to tell us more about her in a sec.
Yeah.
And also an 18-year-old graduate. So they had the 2 brothers plus the oldest and the youngest people ever to go into space.
Wow.
Now, it was an 11-minute, basically a joyride. And they went up and they came back down, because that's sort of the way gravity works.
So they actually went into space, or they were just kind of pushing it?
You could say they kissed the edge of space. It's not really like a hard line. They went up 100 kilometres. So that's a long way up. But I'm going to give you this perspective. So you can imagine, Abel, a globe at school. You know those, we've still got the vision on, so I need to sort of show to the camera what I'm talking about. Can it cut back to me? Here we go. So imagine a school globe. You know the ones that were in the classroom and they're about that big.
Right.
So on that globe, tell me how far, the relationship to that, how far did they go above that globe?
Well,
centimetres, millimetres, this far, that far. This is the globe. How
millimeters?
Far, how many?
Oh, I wouldn't know. I don't really know much
about
about
2
space.
millimetres
That's
they
it.
went. So imagine 2 millimetres on that. That's how far they actually took off. So
But
they didn't go into orbit.
But I still think it's really amazing that they're taking people. And you're saying that they did not actually went through rigorous testing.
No, these are
before they
people.
went.
They're not astronauts. These are people. And you can buy, if you want to, a ticket on the Blue Origin's rocket and go into space.
Would you go?
Oh, I'd go, for sure.
250,000 US, is it?
And people are asking the question, should we be following these billionaires and their frippery of going into space at this time where all that money might be able to be spent on the people who are truly suffering during the COVID-19 pandemic around the world? Is it money well spent? Tell us about Wally Funk, because she is a fascinating person.
Yeah, I don't want to go into these judgments and perspectives because everybody has their own, and there's no point to argue with that. But I think that we should focus on, our truly amazing woman, Wally Funk, who is actually an astronaut, but she was not allowed to go up because of certain lack of degrees. And actually, a male counterpart back in the days, John Glenn, did not have those degrees, but he actually went into space. But Wally Funk, I have to tell you, she is 82 years old and she went into space, and that is actually one of her biggest dreams in her life from what I've read on Wikipedia. And she is actually a professional aviator at 20. I mean, what were you doing at 20 years old? She's a professional aviator. And she is the only astronaut, real astronaut, out of the other 3 people who went into space. And she's so many firsts. She's the first female civilian flight instructor, first female Federal Aviation Agency inspector. I mean, this woman is just amazing.
So, yeah, I was thinking all the time. I watched this last night live. I was fascinated. And that's why I'm talking about it today, because I'm thinking we're watching this rocket go up into the edge of space and getting all excited about it. And I thought, didn't we do this like 50 years ago with Alan Shepard and Yuri Gagarin? And they actually went into Earth orbit. Why are we getting so excited? Maybe because these are just ordinary people.
I think it's because it's ordinary people besides Wally Funk, and that it's Jeff Bezos. I mean, he's like famous, right? Amazon.
Right. With that, we're going to come back and have a talk about a much more local issue and a much more controversial one. It's about Food Panda. You're watching Good Morning Thailand. Thank you for all your comments. People in a bit of a jizz over what I was saying there. Anyway, we'll get back to that in just a moment on Good Morning Thailand.
It's time to join the conversation. Tiger Talk is our forum where you can share your thoughts and comments about all the news stories, as well as just about anything happening in Thailand. Just scroll down under any Tiger story, click on Tiger Talk, register, and you're in. It's time to join Thailand's fastest growing forum. So jump in and be part of the Tiger Talk conversation.
On Good Morning Thailand, let's talk Food Panda.
Yes.
And they're in the news at the moment, probably for all the wrong reasons. And
Yes.
they must be arriving at work today thinking, oh my goodness, we're going to face all this. As we roll tape, Abel, let's just sort of give you a bit of what's going on. Now, Food Pandas, they're facing a public backlash and calls for a boycott after they said they planned to fire a rider who they branded as a terrorist. Well, that rider was arrested yesterday in Pathum Thani, Central Province, just near Bangkok, on lèse majesté charges, arson and violation of the emergency decree after attending last Sunday's anti-government protests in Bangkok. The rider's been identified as a 25-year-old. His name is Sittichok. He's facing 15 years in prison if convicted under Section 112 of the Penal Code. Here in Thailand. He was allegedly filmed pouring petrol on the base of a portrait of His Majesty the King and then lighting it on fire. So, a lot to unpack there, Abel. Firstly, are you aware of this potential boycott of Food Panda?
Yes, I'm just aware of it recently, and perhaps Jay could add in his contents, because before I make a comment, people need to know what it is about portraits of royalties in Thailand that is so important.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, look, Jay actually, he has seen the footage, and we're not going to show the actual footage, but Jay, could you just give us a bit of an idea what was on that footage and what this person was alleged to have done?
Yeah.
Good morning, everyone. Well, Tim, in this specific video, which is now all over Twitter, we can see a man, the Food Panda driver, who has been identified as a 25-year-old City Cho. He was caught on camera pouring inflammable liquid on the base of a large golden frame portrait of the representatives of the Thai monarchy.
Okay. So, and it's quite clear you think the evidence is there on video of what he was doing?
It's extremely clear.
Okay, right.
Yes.
So he's in a lot of trouble.
He's in a lot of trouble. There's no hiding what he actually did.
Okay, so I mean, if you are the CEO of Food Panda today, you've already issued an apology for describing this person as a terrorist, which no matter what his political views, I think it's a quantum leap of logic to sort of call what he was doing as terrorism. But how would you be handling this today?
Well, I definitely would be pretty much doing what they have been doing, which is apologizing for one of the probably freelance representatives of Food Panda. And because sometimes you cannot really control what people do, right? But they have apologized to the public, saying that they will consider, dismissing this person, Siti Chog, from doing that, because it is an illegal act to do things like that, And,
it is in Thailand.
But terrorism, I think it is a very extreme word for lighting a portrait on fire, and I think that is not a fair word to use. And right now, I'm seeing that the results of this action and the use of this word by one of the staff of Food Panda have resulted in many people wanting to boycott Food Panda, which again affects the people who are working for Food Panda, other people.
Else. Yeah.
And the country is suffering enough. People are suffering enough. I personally am not starving, but I know people who are. People are just trying to make a living here. And I think it's sad that the chain of reaction resulted in such an explosive reaction to boycotting Food Panda.
Jay, can I just ask you, was he wearing his Food Panda uniform when he did this act of, vandalism?
No, not exactly the uniform. I think his mask was the color of the Food Panda, the bright pink. However, there's another video where you can see him getting back onto his bike to leave, and he has the Food Panda pouch.
Pack on the back. So is it fair for an employer to say to an employee, you can't do things like that in your spare time, you can't have political views? Because, I mean, if somebody here in our office, if Jay or Jason decided to go and be involved in a protest on the weekend, I'd sort of say, well, okay, that's interesting and well done, hope you had a good time. I wouldn't even think about saying, well, we're going to remove your employment for having a political view.
I believe it is not fair for, this is my personal view, not fair for the person and that he was caught doing what he did. And I believe that just like all the viewers here, everybody has their say, right? You're typing all of these things and you have your say and you want to be heard, similar to my company, Find Your Voice Asia. You want to be heard for what you wish to agree to or what you think, your perspective. Like I said, I just think it's unfortunate that he was caught doing that, and he was caught doing that towards a portrait of the monarchy, and that he was caught with the Food Panda heat box at the end of his motorbike. So
Kun Sainam has written and said it's not potential boycott, it's actual I have deleted my Panda app. Be interested to know anybody else out there that's actually said, well, I'm now going to not use Food Panda because of this issue. I've thought about it because I can use Food Panda or I can use Grab. There's other ones out there. Line Man.
And a few others.
But I'm sort of thinking about it. I think they made a pretty foolish mistake. But then again, they provide a great service. So it's an error of judgment whether a full boycott is...
This is just one staff who tweeted something that uses the word terrorist.
Yeah.
Right? It's one staff.
Yes.
Out of the big Food Panda company. I think it's just kind of... I do not agree with many things that is done. You know, if you have anger and to light something on fire in the public, I think that's not something that should have been done. You can share your anger in more peaceful ways. Like I said, it's just unfortunate that it has gotten blown out of proportion, in my opinion.
So another question from Eric, and we might just address some of the other questions.
Yeah,
He
thank you
says,
for all the questions.
if you were offered a real good job in Bangkok, would you move there from the USA? I'm not really sure if he's addressing that to us because clearly we already work in Thailand, not Bangkok at the moment. But I spent all last year mostly in Bangkok, flying back to Phuket on the weekends. But I will go back to Bangkok as soon as I can to resume work in our Bangkok office.
I would suggest not now. You might get COVID, and I'm not going to host the show next to you.
All right, we'll get through a few more questions before we get to the end of today's show. Talking about all sorts of things. Yeah, somebody's saying, Todd, saying that this is part of cancel culture. People trying to sort of cancel Food Panda because of just one incident. Is this incident worth a boycott? This is what I'm questioning, whether they need to be punished to such an extent for one person issuing a badly worded press statement.
Right. People make mistakes. You have to realize that we are all human
and
we make mistakes.
There are thousands of other Food Panda drivers who you are now punishing.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's not their fault. And it's difficult enough to get a job in Thailand at the moment. So maybe we should ease up a bit on Food Panda. Although, of course, you are well entitled to boycott them if you choose.
Right.
Here's one from Dun Roman, one of our members. Thank you very much for being a member. Says, time for Thailand, step out of the dark ages and get rid of these stupid laws. Things like lèse majesté are considered by people to be quite draconian. Organisations like Amnesty International, I'm playing with the paperclip again. I don't know why. But whether you think they are stupid laws or not, they are the laws of this country we live in, and it's not up to us to change these laws. It's up to the Thai people to decide if they want to retain these laws or not. But yes, they are quite draconian if you want to compare them to Western countries. But Thailand is unique, and the longer you live here, the more you understand how unique it actually is. Another question there, Abel?
I see a lot of comments.
Let's go through some of them.
There's so many comments. It's not a crime till you get caught. Bill Hayes. And then let's see. Okay, I'm not going to answer questions about me personally. Okay, but I'm not Thai.
Where are they? Where are they?
There's too many. But let's focus on the news topics, yeah. And then you don't actually need
You don't
actually need to worry about my ethnicity, my intelligence, my clothing, etc. But you're most welcome to comment. But I'm just not going to reply to them personally. There are so many of them. Okay, gosh, Tim, you're going to have to help me to try to look for some.
CKR asked the question: do you trust the Phuket COVID numbers? Look, this is a really interesting issue, and right through the whole COVID reporting cycle in Thailand, I've spent time with the CCSA. I've gone to some of the media conferences in the early days. I've spoken to the people who have been collecting the data. They showed me how they collected the data. I do believe that they are being honest with the COVID numbers. I don't believe they have any reason not to be honest. And, I mean, at the moment, they're reporting higher case numbers. So if they were trying to hide something, they would perhaps show a falling number of cases. So if you're talking specifically about Phuket because they're trying to protect the Sandbox or something, no, I don't think they are hiding those numbers. I think they're being honest and that we are being very successful in containing the situation.
Yeah.
It is easier here in Phuket because it is an island. They've reported some 9 or 10 overseas travellers who arrived here with COVID. So I think they are being honest and open. If you're asking my opinion, I have no reason to believe that they're not being honest. And if you think they are, then I think it's up to you then to produce some evidence as to reasons they'd be either hiding the numbers.
Journalism.
Yeah. So, provide us with some evidence that the numbers are incorrect. That's what I would be challenging you with. Anything else there?
I do believe that they are trying, all the medical staff, they are trying their best to do what they can, but you cannot check who has COVID. You have to check them first before you can provide the numbers. So some of the people, some of the staff, they probably do not even have enough tests to test all the people who potentially have COVID. So people, and also the government wants to create the confidence, right? And like Tim said, they have been doing very, very well until I think the Delta strand came into Bangkok that spread like wildfire. Before that, with the Alpha strand, I think Thailand has done very, very well in containing the COVID virus.
And the fact is, if COVID was rampant in Thailand and just roaming around the country infecting people, then there would be just a lot more sick people statistically, and there would literally be dead bodies in hospitals. And if that situation was true, believe me, people would be picking up these things and going snap, snap, snap and posting it on their social media accounts. Right. That hasn't been happening. Sick Puppy, another one of our members, thank you very much for being a member, asked the question, when will the Thai healthcare system collapse? Clearly at the moment, from what we can see, is that the Thai healthcare system, it's a public healthcare system. It's it is actually a very good public healthcare system where everybody in Thailand, and even people who are employed here in Thailand, get free access to healthcare. I think it's under a certain amount of, not so much scrutiny, but it's under a certain amount of pressure at the moment. But I think the government have added these field hospitals. They're now looking at other ways. They're asking people who are asymptomatic to perhaps stay at home. So I think they are trying to keep the pressure off the healthcare system and keep it available for people who are truly sick and suffering. Right. So at the moment, as far as we know, the evidence we can see is that the public healthcare system is coping with the situation in Thailand at the moment. Let's hope that continues.
So Tim, I have various people asking, how is Stephanie doing? Bob O and Kevin O. Do you know how Stephanie is doing?
No, good question. And I said yesterday that I would go out and find out how Stephanie was going.
Thanks for your care.
I'm didn't.
Sure she's very happy to.
But Stephanie was obviously far too busy to get back to us, so she didn't respond. But as far as I know, Stephanie's okay. But I will try and get Jason. Can I ask you to contact Stephanie today and find out how she is?
Sure can do.
That's Jason's got that as his job today. So we will get back to you with that information. Here's one from Republic of Liberty. The question, are the Phuket Sandboxes going to be able to leave the Hotel California? Yeah, well, the thing is, the sandboxes here in Phuket, I don't know how many times we have to say this, they're not, they don't have to stay in the hotel. They've got the entire island of Phuket to roam around. They only have to stay in the hotel for the first 12 or 24 hours until that test they get at the airport comes back negative. Then they can roam anywhere around the island for 14 days, and then they're given the opportunity to go to other parts of Thailand. That's the quandary at the moment. Will they go to other parts of Thailand? Do you want to go to other parts of Thailand at the moment? I think I'd stay in Phuket for a bit longer.
I think
at the moment,
I would suggest that you stay put and not travel too much.
Okay. One more. How many people in the Phuket Sandbox have been moved to ASQ because they have been in close contact? We don't have that information right in front of us. I think it's like less than 10. And I know that some of those people were released after they produced a couple of negative tests. But clearly the officials in Phuket are trying to be very careful with the sandbox, and they're jumping on any potential outbreaks. And that's what the people coming to Phuket at this moment under the sandbox program understand, that it's not all going to be a walk in the park. But these people are pioneers, and thank heavens they've been coming. And nearly 10,000 people have arrived during the sandbox. About 50% of those people are actual tourists. Thank you for coming. One of them actually here in the studio taking photos this morning. Hope you tested negative, sir. All right, so can Tim really be that dense? I'm talking about going home. Yeah, I am that dense. I didn't get the tone of your question. Perhaps you need to write your questions better so I do understand them. All right. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today on Good Morning Thailand. And thank you very much to Republic of Liberty. And clearly, we're just not up at your intellectual level. And we'll do our best to struggle up to the heights of your intelligence in the next few days. Thank you, Abel.
I'm sorry.
From Find Your Voice Asia.
Thank you, Tim. Thanks for having me.
And thank you very much to Jason and Jay and our guest James, who's been roaming around the background there taking photos. Thank you to all you people who commented. We got to as many as we could, speaking about, well, just about everything about the other than the Sandbox, but of course we ended up getting dragged into questions about the Sandbox. We do have an epidemiologist. She's been in TED Talks, highly regarded, and we're going to put the hard questions to her about these vaccines, about the Delta variant, and what the future is under the current situation. Looking forward to that.
Definitely looking forward to that. I'll be joining tomorrow.
Thank you for joining us on Good Morning Thailand, and we'll see you later in the day with Thailand News Today. Thanks for joining us.